I'd like to spend this week talking about Rivkah and who I think she was and why I believe she did some of the things that she did. Let's go back to when Rivkah was first on her way to meet Yitzchak for the first time. She was traveling by camelback with Eliezer, and she saw Yitzchak from a little bit of a distance on her camel, and he was in the field in middle of praying to God. And when she saw him, she fell off the camel and she covered her face with her veil. The deceive tells us that she felt embarrassed. Perhaps she felt unworthy of such a great man who was involved in such a spiritual communion with God that she just witnessed. And I think that this insecurity that Rivkah had and this covering up of who she thought she was is a thread that we see throughout all the stories that happen in our parsha in Toldot. But I think it's important to look even more when she, further back, when she first met Eliezer. We know that she was seen as such a fine, caring, giving woman who went above and beyond to give drink to Eliezer and all 10 camels, which is no small feat. And when she had brought Eliezer into the home, it was quite apparent to Eliezer that her brother Lavan and the father Betuel were not exactly of the same nature. They were conniving and manipulative people, and because that was the case, Eliezer was in a rush to bring Rivkah back before anything could change. And that's why he wanted to bring her back immediately, whereupon Lavan said, well, perhaps we should give her 10 months. That's customary to have her prepare for the wedding before she goes. And then he went and said, let's ask Rivkah, thinking, of course, she would agree with him. But when she saw her opportunity to get out, she said, I will go. And she agreed to go with Eliezer immediately. Who she saw was also a very fine person with fine character traits, which she knew he picked up in the house of Abraham, in the house of Yitzchak. And that's what she wanted to go to. She wanted to leave all the manipulation behind, and she wanted to go to marry this man and start a new future of being what she felt true to herself, a good, caring, giving person. And as we know, she comes back and she marries Yitzchak, and then she went through years of not being able to conceive. When she finally does conceive, we're told that the children were running within her. At that point, she didn't know she was having twins, but she felt this running inside. And it says, after that, she said, Im kain lama zeh anochi. If this is the case, then why, as they interpret, do I exist? The classic interpretation is that she just felt it was too much. She just couldn't do it, like she just wanted to die. But I do not believe that's the case. I believe she felt this running within her, and she thought that the child was trying to escape. There was something wrong inherently with her, and that she wasn't worthy of this child from this great Yitzchak, who she admired still so much, and that the child was just trying to get away from her. So what she was saying is, Im kain, if this is the case, lama zeh anochi, why is this? Is it me? Is it me? Am I the cause of this? That's why it makes sense what God answered her, that it made her feel somewhat better, is that he said, no, there are 2 nations within you, and they'll both be great nations, but the younger will serve the elder, and all this information that she kept in mind. And that's why when it says that Yitzchak loved Esav because Sayid Bipiv, he would hunt and bring him food, it says Rivkah ohevet et Yaakov. So Rivkah saw that Esav could take care of himself. He was able to go out into the field and to make a life for himself. She was concerned about the underdog. Her being the woman who she was, who always wanted to take care of people, was worried, how was Yaakov going to be able to fend for himself? What was he going to do in his future? What was going to be? So I think she wanted to get the blessing for Yaakov so that he can have a future, because she wasn't worried about Esav making a life for himself, but she was worried about Yaakov being the weaker one and thought he needed an added advantage by having the blessing. And so she came from the house of Lavan, and so she knew how to trick and manipulate, and so she utilized that character in trying to secure the blessing for Yaakov. She didn't want Yaakov also to have to be at the whim of serving Esav for the rest of his life, because she recognized how Esav was, because he was similar to her brother. They always said, you want to know what someone's going to be like? Look at the mother's brother. And Esav took after Lavan, and she didn't want Yaakov to have to be under his rule for the rest of his life. And so she wanted to secure the blessing for Yaakov. But the ironic thing is by her doing this, it led Esav to such extreme anger that he wanted to kill Yaakov. And Rivkah got a hold of that information, and so she contrived a plan to have him go to look for a wife to save his life. And he was forced, in order to save his life, to go live with Lavan. This is exactly the type of thing she was trying to avoid. So I think the important lesson that we really need to take from this whole thing is that we can be our own worst enemies. We are so many times in our lives, we take our insecurities that we're trying to hide and we're trying to cover up, and we manipulate all sorts of things so that to protect ourselves and to shield ourselves from certain events and the ones that we love. But in the end, we end up causing these very things to happen, because Yaakov ended up having to go for so many years and live with Lavan and deal with that kind of trickery firsthand. And I believe that he had to build his character, the strengths of the character that Esav had that Yaakov didn't have, he needed, because now he was getting the blessing that was meant for Esav. It was meant for those personality traits, and Yaakov didn't have those personality traits. So he had to be under the tutelage, so to speak, of Lavan and learn how to deal with that kind of personality in order to know what to do with the blessing, because the blessing was intended for such a person. So in life, when we try so hard to avoid certain situations because we're afraid of them or embarrassed of them, we end up at times, just causing exactly that thing to occur. We have to face our insecurities and our issues and our demons head on, acknowledge what they are, and bring it out in the open, because at the end of the day, you're put here for a reason, and you have issues for a reason, for your own personal growth, and you're going to have to face them one way or another. So it's better just to admit to it straight on with the people that you love, and to do it in an open and honest manner, and work with what you got, without having to spend your whole life in secrecy and in hiding and in manipulation. So even when it's for the best, even when your intentions are good, even when it's because you just want to be a good person, like Rivkah really wanted to be. So let's try to do that. I think, as hard as it might be, it's easier said than done, of course, but to always keep it in mind and to be honest up front, because we can't stop certain things from happening. We can just do the best we can when we're in the situation itself. So let's do that, and all the luck to you. May God be with you. Shabbat Shalom.